The boiling kimchi jjigae hit Naomi's face at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. She felt her skin blister before she even registered the pain, before she could scream, before she understood that Mrs. Shin had just thrown an entire pot of stew. Naomi's stew, the one she'd spent 4 hours perfecting, directly at her head in front of 30 of Seoul's wealthiest socialites. The screaming came after. From Naomi, from the guests, from someone yelling about calling an ambulance. But not from Mrs. Shin, who stood there with the empty pot still in her hands, her face twisted with satisfaction and rage, and said in perfect English so everyone would understand. This is what happens when black bitches think they can cook our food in our country and disrespect our traditions. What Mrs. Shin didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the black chef, now collapsing on the marble floor with second-degree burns across her face and neck, was the only person in Seoul who could make Kang Ji-woo eat. The only person whose food his body would accept. The only thing standing between Seoul's most dangerous underground king and starvation. And upstairs in Mrs. Shin's study, where Ji-woo was supposed to be signing the contract that would save her husband's failing company, his phone vibrated with an alert from the kitchen camera he'd secretly installed. One look at the screen, at Naomi on the floor, at her burned skin, at her blood mixing with the kimchi jjigae she'd made with her own hands, and something in him snapped so completely that even his own men would later say they'd never seen him that angry, that murderous, that absolutely, catastrophically feral. Mrs. Shin had 90 seconds before he came through that door, 90 seconds left of her old life. 90 seconds before she understood that you don't put your hands on Kang Ji-woo's chef. You don't burn the woman who keeps him alive. You don't humiliate the only person in this entire fucking city who can make him remember what it feels like to be human. In 72 hours, Mrs. Shin would lose everything. Her house, her husband, her citizenship, her ability to exist in South Korea without fear. But the real shock wasn't the destruction. It was how a man who could barely eat anything became a man so obsessively protective that he burned down an entire family's legacy just to avenge one woman's pain. How violence became love, how destruction became devotion, how one burned chef became the most untouchable person in Seoul. This is the story of how one act of violence destroyed a woman's entire world and created a love so consuming it bordered on madness. By the end of this, you'll understand why Mrs. Shin is now living in a one-room apartment in Busan, working as a house cleaner, and why the chef she tried to destroy became the woman who could bring Seoul's most dangerous man to his knees with a single dish. Before we get into the obsession, and trust me, it gets dark, hit that subscribe button. Next week we're dropping the story of the first time Ji-woo tried to eat without Naomi, and what happened to the restaurant that served him. You're not going to want to miss that. Now let's get into this. Naomi woke up to hands on her wrist, gentle, trembling slightly. She forced her eyes open through the medication haze and saw him. Kang Ji-woo looked like he hadn't slept in days. His perfect suit was wrinkled. His hair, always immaculate, fell across his forehead. And his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes she'd only seen in passing at random events, were wet. "You're awake." His voice cracked on the second word. Her face was on fire. Her throat felt raw. She tried to speak and tasted blood and burn cream and something medicinal that made her want to gag. "Don't talk." His thumb moved in circles on her wrist, like he was checking her pulse, like he needed proof she was alive. "The burns are second degree, some third on your jawline. They brought in the best plastic surgeon in Seoul. You're going to be fine. You're..." His voice broke completely. "You're going to be fine." She didn't know this man. Not really. She'd cooked for events he attended, watched him from kitchen doorways, noticed the way he never finished anything on his plate, never seemed to enjoy food the way other people did. But she didn't know him. So why was he holding her hand like she was the only thing keeping him alive? Here's what nobody tells you about chasing dreams in foreign countries. You can be the best at what you do and still starve. Naomi counted the bills at 2 a.m., $247. That was it. That was everything standing between her and a plane ticket home, with her tail between her legs. 3 days until rent. $800 for a shoebox in Itaewon that smelled like mold and broken promises. Her phone buzzed. Another rejection. Another. We've decided to go in a different direction. That really meant we didn't expect you to be black. She'd been eating 50-cent ramyeon for 6 days. Her body was showing it. Weight dropping off. Hair losing its shine. Hands shaking when she tried to prep ingredients for the few clients she still had. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. A professional chef, literally starving in one of the world's food capitals. Her grandmother's voice played on loop in her head. Baby, come home. You've got nothing to prove. But that was the problem. She had everything to prove. How long have I been out? Naomi's voice came out like sandpaper. 18 hours. Jiwoo still hadn't let go of her hand. You had a reaction to the pain medication. Your body shut down for a while. I thought... He stopped. Breathed. I thought I'd lost you. You don't even know me. I know you. His eyes met hers. Dark. Intense. Slightly unhinged. I know you better than you think. Something in his tone made her skin prickle. What does that mean? It means 8 months ago, I tried your food at a corporate event and tasted something for the first time in 8 years. It means I bought the culinary agency you work for just to track your contracts. It means I've been watching you cook for months, making sure you were safe, making sure... You bought the agency? Naomi tried to sit up. Pain exploded across her face. She fell back with a gasp. Don't move. His hands were on her shoulders, gentle but firm. Your skin is still healing. You need to stay still. You've been stalking me? Protecting you. His jaw clenched. There's a difference. There really isn't. Then let me explain the difference. He leaned closer. She could smell him. Expensive cologne mixed with coffee and something sharp, like fear. 8 years ago, someone tried to kill me with poisoned fugu. I survived. But food stopped tasting right. Everything became ash. My body rejected it. I could force myself to eat, but it was mechanical. Joyless. I spent years barely surviving on meals that meant nothing. His hand was still on her wrist, still checking her pulse, like he couldn't believe she was real. Then I tried your bulgogi, and I tasted it. Really tasted it. For the first time in 8 years, food meant something again. She thought this was just another terrible client. She had no idea she was walking into the night that would change her entire life. Mrs. Shin's house was obscene wealth, the kind that screamed insecurity with every gold fixture and unnecessary chandelier. Naomi arrived at 2 p.m. with 6 hours to prep, and her last $200 spent on premium ingredients. This contract was her Hail Mary. $3,000 that would save her from eviction and buy her another month in Seoul. Another month to prove she belonged here. Mrs. Shin walked into the kitchen 7 minutes after Naomi arrived. Designer everything. Face pulled tight from procedures. Eyes scanning Naomi like she was a stain on expensive marble. You're the chef? Not a question, an accusation. And there it was. That tone, that slight uptick of surprise mixed with disgust. Naomi had heard it 100 times, but it never got easier. Yes, ma'am, I'm Naomi Thompson. I specifically requested a Korean chef. The temperature in the kitchen dropped 20 degrees. You're telling me, Naomi said slowly, that you bought an entire agency because I make food you can eat? Yes. That's insane. I know. Jiwoo's thumb was still moving on her wrist. Circles, steady, grounding. I've spent the last 8 months trying to understand why your food works when nothing else does. I've had it analyzed. I've replicated your recipes exactly. I've had other chefs make the same dishes. Nothing works. It's only when you make it. When I watch you make it. When your hands touch every ingredient. He was looking at her like she was oxygen. I'm not a solution to your eating disorder, Naomi said. I know, but you're the only reason I'm not dead. His voice went flat, empty. 3 weeks ago, I tried to go 4 days without your food. My body rejected everything. Else, I ended up in the same hospital on IV fluids because I literally couldn't keep anything down. That's not love. That's dependency. For me, they're the same thing. He leaned forward. I don't know how to separate my survival from my need for you. I don't know how to. The door opened. A man in a black suit stepped in, took one look at Jiwoo holding Naomi's hand and stopped. Boss, we have a situation. Not now. Mrs. Shin is at the police station. She's trying to file charges against you for... Jiwoo's expression went from vulnerable to absolutely murderous in half a second. Tell me exactly what she's trying to do. 6 hours ago, Naomi was just a chef trying to survive. Now she was lying on marble, burning, while 30 people pretended not to see. The dinner had been perfect until it wasn't. Naomi's galbi disappeared in minutes. Her japchae earned actual compliments. Even the banchan, those 12 side dishes she'd agonized over, were appreciated by guests who usually ignored them. Then came the kimchi jjigae. She'd made it with kimchi she'd fermented herself over 6 weeks. Premium pork belly. Broth built from dashima and dried anchovies. She'd tasted it 17 times, adjusting until it sang. Mrs. Shin tried it at 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes before guests arrived. It's too spicy. Naomi's stomach dropped. That's traditional spice level. I don't care what's traditional, I care what my guests will tolerate. Mrs. Shin pushed the bowl away like it was poison. Make it again. Less gochugaru. More water. Something that won't offend their palates. If I water it down now, the flavors won't... Did I ask for your opinion? Mrs. Shin's voice was rising, getting sharp. You work for me. You cook what I want. Not what you think is right. Mrs. Shin, I studied this dish for 3 years. The slap came so fast Naomi didn't see it coming. Mrs. Shin's diamond ring split her lip. She tasted blood, felt it running down her chin. The kitchen tilted sideways. Don't you ever talk back to me. Mrs. Shin's face was twisted with something ugly. Something that went beyond anger into pure hatred. You are nothing, a foreign cook who thought she could come to my country and claim my cuisine as hers. The doorbell rang. Guests arriving. Mrs. Shin smoothed her dress, checked her reflection, smiled like she hadn't just assaulted someone. Get yourself together, and if you embarrass me tonight, you'll regret it. Naomi stood there with blood on her chin and thought, I should leave. I should walk out. I should... But that $3,000 was survival, was staying in Seoul, was not admitting defeat. So she stayed. And she cooked. And she hated herself for it. Mrs. Shin is trying to file assault charges, the man in the black suit said. Against you. She's claiming you threatened her family, that you've been stalking them. She has lawyers. She has nothing. Jiwoo's voice was ice. What she has is 12 hours, until her entire life collapses. Has it started? Phase 1 completed. All accounts frozen. Credit cards declined. The house lion is processing. Good. Jiwoo looked at Naomi. I need to handle something. I'll be back in an hour. What are you going to do? Naomi's voice was weak, but steady. What I should have done the moment she put her hands on you. He kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent. Then he was gone, and the man in the black suit followed, and Naomi was alone with the distinct feeling that somewhere in Seoul, Mrs. Shin's world was about to end. Here's what people don't understand about Korean underground power. It doesn't destroy you with violence. It destroys you with systems, with documentation, with making you disappear without a single bruise. Mrs. Shin was washing Naomi's blood off her hands when her phone rang. Mrs. Shin, this is Shinhan Bank. We need you to come in immediately. There's been irregularities in your accounts. What kind of irregularities? All of your accounts have been frozen pending a fraud investigation. Her stomach dropped. That's impossible. There's no fraud. I haven't. The investigation was initiated by the Financial Supervisory Service. It's out of our hands. Until it's resolved, you won't have access to any funds. She hung up, called her husband. Did you do something with our accounts? I got the same call. His voice was tight with panic. I'm heading to the bank now. This has to be a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. In the next hour, credit cards declined, investment portfolios liquidated, cryptocurrency holdings vanished, business accounts frozen, every single digital asset they owned, gone, clean, surgical, impossible to trace. The kind of thing that required unlimited resources and zero conscience. The kind of thing Kang Ji-woo had been doing for years. When Ji-woo returned an hour later, he looked calmer, more settled, like he'd taken out the trash and could finally breathe again. He sat beside Naomi's bed and took her hand again. That same gentle grip, that same need to check her pulse. Tell me about the poisoning, Naomi said. All of it. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I was having dinner with my mother. She made kimchi jjigae. Her recipe. The one she made every birthday. But she was sick that year. Couldn't cook. So I went to a restaurant instead. His hand tightened on hers. They served fugu as an appetizer. Someone in the kitchen made a mistake, or someone paid them to make one. I still don't know which. His voice was flat, empty. I nearly died. Spent 3 days in ICU, survived. But something in me broke. The trust, Naomi said quietly. The trust. The ability to enjoy food. The ability to taste anything without my body treating it like poison. He looked at her. For 8 years, I've been surviving on meals that meant nothing. Eating because I had to. Building a food empire I couldn't even enjoy. Until my bulgogi. Until your bulgogi. A ghost of a smile. You have no idea what it felt like. That first bite. Actually tasting something, wanting more, feeling human again. So you bought the agency. So I bought the agency. And I watched you. And I vetted every client. And I installed cameras because after Itaewon... He stopped. After Itaewon what? His expression went dark. A customer grabbed you, left bruises, called you a slur. Nobody did anything. Naomi remembered. 6 months ago. The drunk businessman who'd grabbed her arms so hard she'd had fingerprint bruises for a week. How do you know about that? Because I bought that restaurant the next day, fired everyone who'd been working, blacklisted the customer from every establishment in Seoul. He met her eyes, and I decided I was never letting anyone hurt you again. She made one critical error that night. She served the truth instead of what Mrs. Shin demanded. It nearly killed her, but it also saved her. The guests arrived in clouds of expensive perfume and designer labels. Naomi served the banchan, watched them pick at it like it might bite back. The galbi disappeared quickly. At least they could appreciate that. Then came the kimchi jjigae. Naomi hadn't watered it down, hadn't changed it. Because if she was going to be humiliated tonight, she was going to be humiliated for serving real Korean food the way it was meant to be served. Mrs. Shin got the first bowl, took one spoonful, set it down with a clatter that silenced the entire room. This is inedible. Her voice rang through the dining room, clear, deliberate, designed to destroy. So spicy I can barely taste anything else. The kimchi is wrong. Over-fermented. This isn't how kimchi jjigae is supposed to taste. 30 pairs of eyes turned to the kitchen doorway, to Naomi standing there with her split lip barely concealed. The kimchi is properly fermented, Naomi said, her voice steady, professional, even though inside she was screaming. 6 weeks, traditional method. The spice level is authentic. Authentic? Mrs. Shin's laugh was a weapon. You think you know authentic? Some American who took a few cooking classes? I've studied for 8 years. You've played at studying. Mrs. Shin stood. The room held its breath. You've convinced yourself that reading recipes gives you the right to touch Korean food, but it doesn't. She picked up the bowl, the kimchi jjigae, Naomi's masterpiece, still bubbling in the stone pot. This garbage is exactly what you deserve. She threw it. Time slowed down. Naomi saw the bowl arc through the air, tried to move, wasn't fast enough. The boiling stew hit her face at full force. Heat. Then burning. Then pain so intense her brain short-circuited. She was screaming. Or someone was screaming. The world was burning and cold marble and chaos and... Through it all, she heard Mrs. Shin. Clean up this mess. Get her out. Then nothing. Strategy A. Apologize. Beg forgiveness. Hope for mercy. Strategy B. Fight back. Hire lawyers. Try to survive. Mrs. Shin chose wrong. They both led to the same place. By hour 6, Mrs. Shin was at a police station answering questions about financial crimes she hadn't committed but couldn't prove she hadn't. Evidence everywhere. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Tax evasion documentation. Money laundering through shell companies. All pointing back to her. All fabricated but believable. Someone is framing us, she kept saying. Someone with resources. Then she remembered. The American investor, the man her husband had been desperate to meet with. What was his name? Kang Ji-woo. She Googled him with shaking hands. Underground king, connected to every major business in Seoul, rumored to control politicians, police, prosecutors, untouchable, ruthless, dangerous in ways that made regular criminals look like children. And she'd just assaulted his chef in her kitchen. Her phone rang. Her daughter, crying. Mom, my credit cards aren't working. The university says my tuition wasn't paid, but we prepaid months ago. Mrs. Shin hung up, felt her world tilt sideways. This wasn't just about her. He was destroying everyone she loved. Her daughter, her husband, her entire family. All because she'd thrown food at one woman. You're telling me you've been orchestrating my entire career for 8 months, Naomi said. Yes. And you've been watching me through hidden cameras. Yes. And you just destroyed an entire family because they hurt me. Yes. Jiwoo's expression didn't change. And I'd do it again. I'd do worse. Naomi should have been terrified. Should have been calling security. Should have been getting as far from this man as possible, but instead, she asked, Why? Because you keep me alive. Simple, direct, devastating. Because without you, I starve. Because you're not just a chef to me. He stopped. You're everything. That's not healthy. I know. I've been to 6 different therapists. They all say the same thing. That my dependency on you is unhealthy, that I need to separate my survival needs from my emotional attachment, that I should find a way to eat without needing you. He leaned closer. But I don't want to. I want to need you. I want you to be the center of my entire world. I want everyone in Seoul to know that touching you means death. His thumb was still moving on her wrist. Circles. Steady. like he was afraid if he stopped, she'd disappear. I'm in love with you, Naomi. Obsessively, completely. In ways that would probably terrify you if you weren't too tired to be scared. The room was silent except for the beep of monitors. Naomi looked at this man. This dangerous, broken, obsessive man who'd somehow become essential to her existence without her even realizing it. You're right, she said quietly. I should be terrified. Are you? She thought about being broke in soul, about Mrs. Shin's slap, about waking up in this hospital with Jiwoo holding her hand like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. No, she admitted. I'm not. His expression shifted. Hope. Raw and desperate. Why not? Because for the first time since I came to Seoul, someone sees me as essential instead of expendable. Her voice cracked. Someone thinks I'm worth protecting, worth destroying families over, worth... He kissed her, carefully, mindfully of her burns, but with enough intensity that she felt it everywhere. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. I'm yours, he said. Completely. Obsessively. For as long as you'll have me. She thought she was winning when she threw that food. She thought she'd put an uppity foreign chef in her place. What she didn't know was that she'd just started a countdown she couldn't stop. By hour 12, Mrs. Shin was released from police custody. Not because she was innocent, because they couldn't formally charge her yet. She went home, found the locks changed. The foreclosure had gone through. Everything they owned, inside a house they could no longer enter. She stood on the sidewalk in her Chanel dress and designer shoes, looking at her own front door, and understood something fundamental. She'd lost. Not just her house, not just her money. Everything. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You had one job tonight. Treat a chef with basic human dignity. You failed. This is what failure costs in my world. KJW. She read it 3 times. Understood she was never getting her life back. Understood she'd made an enemy of someone who played games she couldn't even comprehend. Understood that throwing food at Kang Jiwoo's chef was the biggest mistake of her entire privileged life. What happens now? Naomi asked. Now? Jiwoo settled back into the chair beside her bed. Now you heal. Now I make sure you have everything you need. Now we figure out what this is between us. I'm broke, Naomi said. I can't pay you back for the hospital, for the treatment, for any of this. I know. I've known you were broke since month 3. He said it matter-of-factly. I know your bank balance, your rent situation, that you've been eating ramyeon because you can't afford real food. She should have been angry. You really have been stalking me. Protecting you. There's a difference. There really isn't. Then let me earn the right to call it protection. He squeezed her hand. Move into my penthouse. Cook in my kitchen. Let me take care of you while you heal. And if you decide you want nothing to do with me after you're better, I'll set you up in your own place with enough money to never worry again. And if I decide I want you? His expression went soft. Vulnerable. Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. Naomi looked at the ceiling, at the expensive hospital room, at this man who destroyed a family for her. This is insane, she said, completely. You're obsessed with me in unhealthy ways. Absolutely. You need therapy, lots of it. Already scheduled 6 more sessions with a specialist. And Mrs. Shin? His expression went cold again. Will spend the rest of her life working minimum wage jobs in cities where nobody knows her name. She'll never recover. She'll never forget. And she'll always know it's because she put her hands on you. Naomi should have felt bad about that. She didn't. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, I'll move in. I'll cook for you. She stopped. I'll let you love me in your obsessive, slightly terrifying way. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't wake up one day and decide I'm not worth it anymore. Promise me this isn't just about the food. Promise me. I promise. He leaned forward. I promise on everything I own. I promise on my life. I promise I will never stop needing you. Never stop protecting you. Never stop making sure you're safe. He kissed her again. Deeper this time. She tasted desperation and promise, and something that might have been forever. 6 months ago, she was a broke chef eating ramyeon in a moldy apartment. Today, she owns the most exclusive restaurant in Gangnam. That's what happens when someone loves you like they're starving. The restaurant opened on a Thursday. Naomi's, in simple letters over the door. Because Ji-woo wanted everyone who walked in to know whose hands touched their food. The menu was everything she'd dreamed of. Korean techniques with Southern soul food influences. Kimchi fried chicken that made people weep. Collard green kimchi that confused and delighted. Gochujang mac and cheese that shouldn't work but did. Food that was unapologetically both. Korean and Southern. Traditional and revolutionary. The critics came ready to destroy her. They left silent. Some left crying. All left changed. The reviews came out the next day. 5 stars. Case of them. The best Korean food in Seoul. Revolutionary cuisine. A chef who understands that food has no borders. Ji-woo sat at the same seat every night. Bar stool. Direct view of the kitchen, eating everything she made. How does it taste? She asked one night after service. Like coming home? He smiled, that rare, genuine smile. Like every good memory I have, like love. It's just stew. No, it's your stew, made by your hands, which means it's everything. One night, Naomi looked up from the kitchen and saw her, Mrs. Shin, standing outside the restaurant window, staring in. She looked diminished, small, worn clothes, the kind of small that came from losing everything and realizing it wasn't coming back. Naomi's hands stopped moving. Ji-woo followed her gaze. His expression went cold. I'll handle it. No. Naomi grabbed his arm. Let me. She walked outside, faced the woman who'd burned her. Mrs. Shin looked like she might cry. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean anything. I know it doesn't fix what I did. But I'm sorry. Naomi looked at her. At the burn scars on her own face that had faded but would never fully disappear. At the restaurant behind her that existed because this woman had destroyed her. I forgive you, Naomi said. Mrs. Shin's eyes filled with tears. You... What? I forgive you. Because holding on to anger takes energy I don't want to spend. Because my life is better now than it was before. Because... She paused. Because I'm happy. And you're not. And that's enough. Can I... Someday, when I've saved enough, can I eat here? Naomi thought about grace, about forgiveness, about the fact that she was safe now, protected now, loved now. Yes. When you've saved enough, come eat. I'll cook for you, and you'll understand what you tried to destroy. Mrs. Shin walked away crying. Ji-woo was staring at her like she'd performed a miracle. You forgave her. I did. Why? Because holding on to hate would make me like her, and I'm not like her. I'm better. She moved to him. And because you already destroyed her life, what's left to punish? He pulled her close, kissed her hard, desperate, like he couldn't believe she was real. I don't deserve you. Probably not. She kissed him back. But you're stuck with me anyway, forever, obsessively. In ways that would concern a therapist. He laughed, the sound rare and beautiful. Forever, he agreed. Desperately, completely. I'm yours. They stood in the restaurant that existed because of violence and love and obsession all tangled together. The The kitchen closed at midnight. The last customer left satisfied. Ji-woo sat at his usual spot while Naomi cleaned up. "Come here," he said. She moved to him, let him pull her close. "Do you know what you've done?" he asked. "Made a successful restaurant? Changed me completely." His arms tightened around her. "I used to think power was about fear, control, making people afraid to cross you. But you showed me something different." "What's that?" "That real power is building something that outlasts you, that the strongest thing you can do isn't destroy your enemies. It's protect your people so well they can build something beautiful." He kissed her forehead. "Mrs. Shin is gone. Erased. But this restaurant, this is going to help people for years. Feed them. Comfort them. Show them that food has no borders. That's real power." Naomi touched his face. "You were always capable of this. You just needed a reason. You're my reason. My conscience. My better half." He kissed her. "My everything." They stood in the Seoul night. Two people from different worlds who'd found in each other exactly what they'd been searching for. Here's what Naomi learned from having food thrown in her face. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best things. Sometimes cruelty opens doors that kindness never could. Sometimes being treated like you don't belong shows you exactly where you're meant to be. Ji-woo could have just been a boss, just been a wealthy client, just been another person taking from her without giving back. Instead, he became her partner, her equal, the person who saw her art and valued it, who saw her soul and fed it the way she fed his, from one thrown dish to a culinary empire, from humiliation to transformation, from two broken people to one complete love. That's the real story. Not the revenge, not the destruction, the building, the becoming, the choice to take pain and turn it into purpose, to take hunger and turn it into love. And as they stood in their restaurant, as Ji-woo held her close and whispered promises about tomorrow and forever, Naomi understood something fundamental. She hadn't just fed a man. She'd fed a soul. And he'd loved her so completely that he'd built her a world where she could feed thousands more. From private chef to queen, from trauma to triumph, from food as survival to food as art. That's what happens when you feed someone's hunger, when you meet their need, when you bridge their broken places with your art. You don't just cook. You transform. You heal. You love. If you made it this far, drop a comment. What's the one food that feels like home to you? The dish that heals you when nothing else can? Subscribe, because next week we're telling the story of how Ji-woo's rival tried to poison Naomi, and how Ji-woo's response made his reputation as Seoul's most dangerous man absolute. Trust me, if you thought this revenge was dark, next week's is absolutely devastating. Until then, remember, the right person doesn't just eat your food. They taste your soul in every bite. They understand what you're giving them. And they spend the rest of their life making sure you're fed too, in every way that matters.